everyone, this is Shannon with Waffle Flower Crafts. I'm so excited to be here with you all, as Simon says, sharing with you a really fun card idea that I created with some brand new products from Waffle Flower's December release. This is the new Cookie Love combo. Comes with the Cookie Love stamp set and matching dies in the back. I've pulled off all the images from this set and mounted them here in my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp them on some Bristol Smooth paper with VersaFine ONYX black ink. I'm going to be watercoloring these images in today with distress inks, so it's important that I use a waterproof ink to stamp them in, like VersaFine ONYX black. Once all the stamps are inked up, I just fold my MISTI over and stamp them down. I'm actually going to stamp the cat an additional 3 more times, so I have 4 kitties, and that heart a second time. So I've just repositioned the stamps here, and I'm stamping as much as I possibly can onto this A2 panel of Bristol paper. I needed a little bit more paper, so I grabbed a scrap and stamped my 4th cat on it. And once I finish stamping him, I'm done with all my images. With my images stamped, I now can move on to watercoloring. I'm going to use distress inks, so I need to have a palette here to press the pads out onto to get some of the ink out. I'm starting with a mustard seed and ripe persimmon, and I'm just going to paint the stripes in here. I just have a damp brush. There's water you can see sprayed to the right of my palette here, and I just grab small amounts of water, add it to the ink to make it just a little bit more liquid, and then I start painting in. I'm now blending the orange and the yellow together, again with a little bit more water, and just kind of blending those two so there's a nice gradation between the orange to the yellow, and that will complete my stripes. I just added a shadow with tumbled glass around the cat, and now I'm going to finish up the cookies and the mouse with the remaining distress ink colors. I think the important thing to remember when you're painting or watercoloring with distress inks is you need very little water to get the ink liquidy and paintable. Just a small drop of water. That's why I spray water to the side, so I can just pick up a small amount of water on my brush and add it to the paint. I'm just about done here. I'm going to add a little rosy cheek here on the mouse, and that will complete my watercoloring. I'll color the other cats off screen. But before I do that, I will hold my images up to the camera so you can get a better look at some of the coloring. I went ahead and painted the rest of the cats in, as well as die cut all the images out with the matching dies, except for this jar of cookies here. I just want the cookies from inside this jar, so I'm going to fussy cut them out with a pair of scissors. I am going to leave a white border though as I cut to make this image consistent with the rest. As I cut, you may notice that there are some details in the jar that are kind of staying with my cookies. You can see little black spots. I'm going to cover those up with a really quick trick. I have a white gel pen here. I'm just going to color over those little black areas. They're basically little streaks that were a part of the glass jar image, and I'm just coloring them over, and this will create that look of that beautiful white border consistent all around, so it looks like these were completely clean. They were never in a jar to begin with. Now that all my images are colored and die cut out, I'm going to move on to creating my background. This is Waffle Flower's brand new halftone background stamp set. This is an awesome background stamp set. It provides a really subtle background that's perfect for your stamped images. I've created a square card base that is 5 1/4, and I made it from an 8 1/2 and 11 sheet of cardstock. And the remaining strip from creating that card base, I cut into 4 rectangles. Each one of these rectangles are 3 1/4 by 2 3/4 of an inch big. And I'm going to stamp this halftone background, the one that looks like a gradient, on each one of these rectangles with Distress Oxide. This first is Twisted Citron, and I just stamped it a couple times there because I had a little hair stuck to the stamp that was making a little spot. Now I'm moving on to Spiced Marmalade. This is Abandoned Coral, and then I'll finish up with Salty Ocean. I will later trim these down after I've stamped them and they've dried completely to a 2 1/2 inch square panels that will go behind each one of the 4 cats. While my background pieces are drying, I'm going to move on to stamping my sentiment. I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment, so I've applied some anti-static powder first, then I've inked up the sentiment with Versamark ink. This sentiment is from the Cookie Love stamp set. And I'm going to emboss this with some white embossing powder. So I'm just pouring on some white embossing powder, tapping off the excess, and then I will heat set with my heat tool. So I went ahead and trimmed down my panels to 2.5-inch square. So each one of these halftone background panels are a square that's 2.5 inch. And I also trimmed my sentiment down a little bit, almost to a strip, but because Cookies is a little bit bigger than the rest of the font, I stopped just before I got to the higher parts in Cookies, which is really just the K, and I'm now going to fussy cut around those parts till I meet back up to my straight edge that I cut with my paper trimmer. All of these, the panels, or I should say the 2.5-inch square panels and this sentiment strip was all cut with my paper trimmer. I just stopped just before I got to that K in the Cookies. Now I have everything ready to assemble my card. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue down these panels onto my 5.25-inch square card base, and I'm just using some liquid adhesive to do that. I applied the liquid adhesive to all 4 of them at once, so they are all still liquidy and movey. I'm able to move them and just kind of adjusted them till they were perfectly centered on this square card base. Now I'm gluing down all 4 of my cats, and in each one of these cats' paws I'm going to put a cookie, except for the very last one on the corner I'm going to put that little mouse toy. And then I will glue my 3 hearts all around this cat, just to kind of really draw your eye in, because basically the narration of this is that well, the sentiment says, "I love you more than cookies," and then that last frame you see the cat holding the toy with all the hearts. So I think it works out really well. It's such a great little, a cute little stamp set that you can really play with the meaning and have a lot of fun with. And I just stuck the sentiment down with some foam tape, and that will complete my card. So I'll just hold the card up to the camera so you can get a good look at the coloring and the backgrounds. I really like this card idea. I think it's such a fun take on the pop art card kind of theme. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Simon Says. And thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.